The Valaran Concord had not seen war in 3,000 years, and they were proud of this fact above all others. 7 species had joined together in perfect harmony, settling every dispute through words and compromise. They built beautiful stations that floated among the stars. They shared art and music and philosophy across dozens of worlds. Violence was something they read about in ancient history texts, a primitive habit that civilized beings had abandoned long ago. So when humanity requested membership in the Concord, the Council debated for many months before finally agreeing. Humans were new to the galactic stage, barely a century into space travel. They came from a harsh world filled with predators and natural disasters. Their history was soaked in blood and conflict. But the Concord believed in redemption. They believed that any species could learn peace if given the proper guidance. And so, they accepted humanity with open arms, requesting only that humans send a single representative to begin the integration process. The man who arrived was not what anyone expected. Kang Day 1 stepped off the transport shuttle with a gentle smile on his face. He was average in height and build, with kind eyes and a soft voice that never rose above a pleasant conversation. He bowed respectfully to every delegate who greeted him, and he thanked the station workers for carrying his single small bag. Ambassador Yelthin of the Morvani people watched him with 4 curious eyes. The Morvani were tall and graceful, with silver skin that shimmered in any light. They prided themselves on reading other beings, on understanding the hearts of strangers at a glance. "This one is harmless," Yelthin announced to the other council members that evening. "Humanity has sent us their most passive representative. Perhaps they understand their place in the Concord already." The others agreed. Day 1 asked no difficult questions. He made no demands. He spent his days attending cultural presentations and learning the languages of each species with surprising dedication. He complimented their architecture and asked humble questions about their customs. Weeks passed, and the council almost forgot he was there. Day 1 did not mind being forgotten. He walked the corridors of the great station with quiet steps, observing everything. He noticed how the Krelix delegates always avoided the Fenari. He saw how Trade Minister Vashin accepted bribes from merchant guilds. He learned which council members held grudges hidden behind diplomatic smiles. He recorded nothing. He wrote nothing down, but he remembered everything, storing each detail in the vast library of his mind. 3 months after his arrival, the crisis began. A transmission arrived from the edge of Concord space, and every screen on the station displayed the face of a nightmare. Commander Vorthan of the Keth Dominion filled the image, his armored scales gleaming with dark menace. The Keth were conquerors, predators who had carved an empire from the flesh of weaker species. They respected nothing but strength. "Creatures of the Concord," Vorthan growled through rows of razor teeth. "The Dominion claims the worlds of Telver, Motion, and Yineth. You will surrender these systems within 30 rotations, or we will take them by force. Your pathetic alliance has no fleet. You have no warriors. You have nothing but soft words and soft bodies." The transmission ended, and panic spread through the station like fire. Council members shouted over each other in the emergency session. The Morvani demanded immediate negotiation. The Fenari suggested abandoning the 3 worlds to save the rest. The Krelix representative fainted from fear. Day 1 sat in his observer seat at the back of the chamber, watching the chaos with calm eyes. High Chancellor Marithia finally restored order with a desperate cry. She was ancient even by Morvani standards, her silver skin now pale gray with age. She had led the Concord through many challenges, but never anything like this. "We cannot fight," she admitted, her voice trembling. "The Keth speak truth. We have no military, no weapons, no soldiers. We abolished such things centuries ago. If we do not negotiate, millions will die." "The Keth do not negotiate," the Fenari ambassador said darkly. They take what they want and kill anyone who resists. Talking to them is pointless. Silence fell over the chamber, heavy with despair. Then a soft voice spoke from the back of the room. I will go. Every eye turned to the human. Day One stood slowly, his gentle smile unchanged. He walked toward the center of the chamber with unhurried steps. Forgive my interruption, he said politely, but I would like to volunteer as negotiator. I will travel to the Keth flagship and speak with Commander Vorthan. Ambassador Yelthin let out a bitter laugh. You! What could you possibly do, little human? The Keth will eat you alive. Perhaps, Day One agreed with a small nod. But you have no other options. Let me try. If I fail, you lose nothing but one insignificant diplomat. If I succeed, you save 3 worlds. Chancellor Marithia studied the human for a long moment. She saw nothing special in him, nothing that suggested he could accomplish what he claimed. But desperation makes strange allies. Very well, she said finally. You may go, Ambassador Khan. May fortune favor your journey. Day One bowed deeply. Thank you, Chancellor. I will meet a small transport and 3 days upon my return, whatever the outcome. Please trust me until then. The council exchanged confused glances but agreed. What choice did they have? As Day One left the chamber, none of them noticed a subtle change in his eyes. The warmth remained, but something else stirred beneath it now. Something cold and calculating. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time. The gentle diplomat walked toward the shuttle bay, and deep within his mind, a different man began to wake. Earth had not sent their most harmless representative to the Concorde. They had sent their most dangerous one. And now, finally, it was time for Kang Day One to remember who he truly was. The Keth flagship was called the Devourer and earned its name through centuries of conquest. Day One's tiny transport looked like an insect approaching a mountain as it drifted toward the massive warship. The Devourer stretched across space like a weapon forged by angry gods, bristling with cannons and armored plates that could withstand any assault. Hundreds of smaller vessels surrounded it, each one capable of destroying entire cities. The shuttle bay swallowed his transport whole, and Day One stepped out into a world of darkness and metal. Keth warriors lined the walkway, each one standing 3 meters tall with scales thick as armor and claws that could tear through steel. They watched the small human with hungry eyes. This is what the Concorde sends? One warrior laughed. A snack. Day One smiled politely and continued walking. Commander Vorthan waited in his throne room at the heart of the ship. He was larger than the others, a monster among monsters, with scars covering his face from countless battles. Golden chains hung from his neck, each link representing a conquered world. He sat upon a throne made from the bones of his enemies. The little human, Vorthan rumbled as Day One entered. I expected them to send someone important. Instead, they send you. Are you their jester? Come to amuse me before I destroy your precious Concorde. Day One bowed respectfully. Commander Vorthan, I am honored to meet such a legendary warrior. The stories of your conquests have reached even my distant world. Vorthan's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Flattery will not save you. I do not seek to be saved, Day One replied calmly. I seek only to understand. The Concorde wishes to avoid war. Perhaps there is an arrangement that benefits everyone. The throne room erupted in laughter. Keth officers and warlords lined the walls, and they found the human's words incredibly amusing. One officer stepped forward, a massive warrior with cybernetic enhancements covering half his body. The Dominion does not make arrangements, the officer snarled. We take what we want. The Concorde has no military. They are prey, nothing more. Day One turned to study the officer with innocent curiosity. Forgive me, but I did not catch your name. I am Warlord Kesseth, commander of the Third Fleet. Why does it matter? I simply wish to remember everyone I meet, Day One said with a warm smile. It is a habit of mine. He turned back to Vorthan, but his eyes had swept across the entire room in that brief moment. He noted the positions of every officer. He saw which ones stood close to Vorthan and which ones kept their distance. He observed the subtle tension between Kesseth and another warlord across the chamber. Commander, the one continued, surely the Dominion gains nothing from destroying the Concord. Their worlds are rich in resources. Their people could serve the Empire as workers and scientists. Why spend lives conquering what you could simply absorb? Vorthan leaned forward with interest. You suggest we take everything without a fight? I suggest only that war is expensive. Your fleets are mighty, but maintaining them costs enormous resources. A peaceful absorption would leave your military free to focus on other threats. Other threats? Vorthan's voice dropped low. What other threats? Day One allowed confusion to cross his face. I apologize. I assumed you already knew. My information is probably outdated. The throne room grew quiet. Every Keth was watching now. Speak clearly, human, Vorthan commanded. Day One hesitated perfectly, as if debating whether to share a secret. It is only rumors, Commander. Whispers I heard during my travels. Something about movements along your southern border. The Vraxian Collective has been building ships, or so the merchants say. But I am sure it is nothing. He watched the reaction spread through the room like poison. Warlord Kesseth exchanged a sharp glance with two officers near him. Another warlord, one who had stayed silent until now, shifted uncomfortably. Vorthan's claws dug into the armrests of his throne. The Vraxian Collective was the Dominion's oldest rival. Any movement from them meant potential war on two fronts. The negotiations have failed, Vorthan announced suddenly. Take this human back to his ship. We attacked the Concord in 30 rotations, as promised. Day One bowed again. I understand, Commander. Thank you for hearing me. I will tell the Concord to prepare for your arrival. As guards escorted him away, Day One allowed himself one final observation. Vorthan was already summoning Kesseth forward, demanding information about the southern border. The seed of doubt had been planted. The journey back to Concord space took 2 days, and Day One spent every hour in meditation. Not peaceful meditation, but the kind taught to him in the underground facilities of Earth. The kind that sharpened memory into a weapon. 20 years ago, Kang Day One had been the youngest operative ever accepted into Earth's Strategic Intelligence Division. He had ended wars before they began. He had toppled governments with nothing but whispered words. He had broken empires from the inside while their leaders never suspected a thing. Then he had retired, seeking peace after so much shadow work. The gentle diplomat was not a mask. Day One truly wanted harmony, truly believed in peace. But he had never forgotten his training. He had never lost his skills. And now, for the sake of innocent millions who could not defend themselves, he would use them again. His transport docked at the Concord station, and Day One walked into the council chamber where anxious delegates waited. The negotiations failed, he announced simply. Despair crashed over the room like a wave. However, Day One continued, I require 3 days and your complete trust. Do not ask what I am doing. Do not interfere. When the 3 days end, I will explain everything. Chancellor Marithia stared at him with desperate hope. What are you planning, Ambassador Kang? Day One's gentle smile remained, but his eyes had changed completely. Cold calculation burned behind that warmth now, and for the first time, the council felt something unexpected when they looked at the small human. They felt afraid. I am going to save you, Day One said quietly. All of you. Now please, trust me." The first day began in silence. Day one locked himself in his quarters and activated a communication device that no one in the Concord knew he possessed. It was small enough to fit in his palm, disguised as a meditation stone, but it could reach across the entire galaxy through encrypted channels that even the most advanced species could not detect. "This is Whisper 7, he spoke softly. "Activating protocol harmony. All assets confirm status." Responses came within the hour. Voices from dozens of worlds, speaking in codes that only trained operatives understood. Human traders on Keth supply stations. Human engineers working in Dominion shipyards. Human bartenders, merchants, and workers scattered across enemy territory like invisible needles in a massive haystack. Earth had been preparing for this day for decades. When humanity first reached the stars, they discovered a terrifying truth. The galaxy was filled with predators, and Earth's children were small and weak by comparison. So while diplomats smiled and signed treaties, intelligence operatives built networks in the shadows. They placed agents everywhere, sleeping assets waiting for the moment they would be needed. That moment had arrived. "Target Kesseth," Day 1 commanded. "Begin Phase 1. On a distant station, deep in Keth territory, a human merchant named Park Jin-young adjusted his smile and approached a group of Keth officers drinking at a bar. He had been selling engine parts to the Dominion for 15 years, building trust one transaction at a time. Now he would spend that trust like currency. "Friends," Jin-young said casually, "have you heard the rumors about Warlord Kesseth? They say he has been meeting secretly with Raxian ambassadors." "Probably nothing, but strange times create strange alliances." He walked away before they could question him. The rumor was planted. Similar seeds were scattered across 100 locations in the first day alone. Human workers whispered to Keth supervisors. Human traders shared gossip with military officers. Every whisper pointed toward the same conclusion. Someone in the Dominion's leadership was planning betrayal. The second day brought chaos. Day 1 received reports through his hidden network. A supply convoy destined for Vorton's fleet had been delayed due to navigation errors introduced by a human engineer. Communication satellites experienced mysterious glitches that corrupted messages between warlords. False intelligence reports appeared in secure databases, documents that suggested secret negotiations between Kesseth and the Vraxian Collective. None of it was true, but in an empire built on violence and paranoia, truth mattered less than fear. Commander Vorthon received 3 separate warnings about Kesseth's loyalty before midday. Each warning came from sources he trusted, sources that had been carefully cultivated over years by human operatives. His rage built with every report. When Kesseth attempted to contact Vorthon to discuss fleet movements, his communications were mysteriously blocked. When he finally reached the flagship in person, guards stopped him at the door. "The commander is not seeing visitors," they growled. Kesseth's confusion turned to anger, and his anger turned to fear. If Vorthon suspected him of treachery, his life was already forfeit. He returned to his own fleet and began preparing defenses, just in case. Other warlords noticed his preparations. More rumors spread. On the Concord station, Ambassador Yelthin demanded answers. "What are you doing in there?" he shouted outside Day 1's quarters. "The council demands to know your plans." The door slid open, and Day 1 stood there with his usual gentle smile. "Ambassador, I am simply sending messages to friends. Would you like to come in for tea?" Yelthin stared at the small human with 4 suspicious eyes. "Tea? The Dominion will attack in days, and you offer tea?" "Sometimes tea is all we need," Day 1 replied calmly. "Please trust me a little longer. The situation is developing as I hoped." He closed the door before Yelthin could respond. The third day brought fire. Vorthan's paranoia reached its peak. He summoned Kesseth and 2 other warlords to his throne room, demanding they prove their loyalty. The meeting turned violent when Kesseth refused to kneel, calling the accusations insane. Weapons were drawn. Kesseth escaped with his life, but barely. Within hours, civil war erupted across the Dominion. Kesseth's Third Fleet turned against Vorthan. Other warlords chose sides based on old grudges and new fears. Ships that should have been preparing to attack the Concord were instead firing on each other. Day One watched the reports flow across his screen, and for a moment, his gentle mask slipped. His face became cold stone, the face of a man who had learned to destroy empires with nothing but patience and words. He had done this before. He had torn apart governments. He had watched nations burn from the shadows. It never became easier. But then he thought of the innocent millions in the Concord, the artists and dreamers and children who would die if the Dominion attacked. His face softened again. Some prices had to be paid. Some sins had to be carried. That was what it meant to be a protector. When the 3 days ended, Day One walked into the council chamber. Every delegate was present, their faces filled with desperate hope and lingering confusion. The Dominion is at war with itself, Day One announced quietly. Their attack will be significantly weakened, but they will still come. Vorthan is too proud to abandon his conquest. How? Chancellor Marithia whispered. How did you do this? I talked to friends, Day One replied. I shared information. I reminded certain individuals of suspicions they already carried. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. Humans are not strong, Chancellor. We cannot fight like the Keth. But we learned long ago that words can be sharper than any blade. Ambassador Yelthin stepped forward, his silver skin pale with realization. You are not a diplomat, are you? Not truly. Day One met his gaze without flinching. I am exactly what humanity needed me to be. A diplomat when peace was possible. A weapon when it was not. He smiled sadly. I wish I could have remained just a diplomat forever. But the Concord needed protection, and I am what humans send when they wish to protect something precious. The council stared at the small human as if seeing him for the first time. And Day One smiled his gentle smile, even as the weight of 3 days of shadow warfare pressed heavy on his soul. The Keth fleet arrived on the 28th day, 2 days earlier than promised. Alarms screamed across every Concord station as sensors detected the approaching warships. Council members gathered in the emergency command center, watching holographic displays with terrified eyes. The fleet was smaller than intelligence had predicted, nearly half the original force, but it was still enough to annihilate everything they held dear. 47 warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Concord territory. The Devourer led the formation, Commander Vorthan's flagship burning with fury and wounded pride. His empire was tearing itself apart behind him, but he refused to abandon his conquest. He would take these worlds or die trying. All Concord citizens, evacuate to emergency shelters. Chancellor Marithia announced through shaking lips. May the ancestors protect us all. Ambassador Yelthin turned to Day One with desperate eyes. You said their attack would be weakened. They still have nearly 50 warships. We have nothing. Day One stood perfectly still, watching the display with calm focus. I said they would be weakened. I did not say we would be defenseless. He walked to the communication console and entered a code that no one recognized. The system accepted it immediately, opening a channel that should not have existed. This is Ambassador Kang Day One. He spoke clearly. Authorization code. Shepard watches the flock. Requesting immediate intervention. Static filled the channel for 3 heartbeats. Then a human voice responded. Authorization confirmed. Task Force Harmony is inbound. Hold position. The holographic display flickered as new contacts appeared. 12 ships emerged from hyperspace behind the Concorde station, their designs unlike anything the Council had ever seen. They were sleek and deadly, built for speed and precision, covered in weapons that glowed with barely contained energy. Human warships. What is this? Chancellor Marithia gasped. Humanity has no military fleet. Your species only recently achieved space travel. Day One turned to face her, and his gentle smile was gone. In its place was the expression of a soldier preparing for battle. Humanity achieved space travel a century ago, Chancellor. We have had 100 years to prepare for threats like this. Did you think we spent that time only building merchant vessels? The Council stared in shock as the human fleet formed a defensive line. Vorthan's voice crackled across the communication channel, transmitted to the entire system. What is this? 12 ships against my armada? Is this your great defense, Concorde? Pathetic. Day One stepped forward and opened a response channel. Commander Vorthan, this is Ambassador Kang Day One. I advise you to withdraw your forces immediately. Continued aggression will result in the destruction of your fleet. Laughter exploded from Vorthan's transmission. The little diplomat threatens me? I will enjoy watching my cannons tear your toys apart. All ships, attack formation. Destroy them all. The Keth fleet surged forward, and the human ships moved like nothing the galaxy had ever witnessed. They did not fly in formation. They scattered like wolves hunting prey, each vessel moving independently, yet perfectly coordinated. Their weapons fired in precise bursts, striking Keth shields at exact weak points. They danced around enemy fire with impossible grace. The first Keth warship exploded within 60 seconds. Day One stood at the command console, his hands flying across controls as he issued orders. His voice never rose above a calm murmur, but every word carried absolute authority. Hammer 3, focus fire on that cruiser's engine section. Shadow Wing, flank the destroyer group. Striker Lead, prepare boarding torpedoes for the flagship. The Council watched in stunned silence as the battle unfolded. The Keth outnumbered the humans nearly 4-1, yet they were losing. Human ships struck from unexpected angles, retreated before return fire could connect, then struck again. It was not a battle, it was a precise and methodical dismantling. Ambassador Yelthin finally found his voice. This is impossible. How are they doing this? Humans are fragile, Day One replied without looking away from the display. Our bodies break easily. So we learned to fight smarter, to use technology and tactics instead of brute strength. Every ship in this task force is equipped with systems your scientists cannot imagine. Every pilot trained since childhood for exactly this kind of engagement. Another Keth warship broke apart under concentrated fire. Vorthan's voice returned to the channel, no longer laughing. What sorcery is this? Fight with honor, cowards. Stand still and face us. Honor is a luxury, Day One responded coldly. My people cannot afford luxuries when innocent lives are threatened. Surrender now, Commander, and I will spare your remaining ships. Never. The Devourer accelerated toward the human formation, all weapons firing. It was still the largest ship in the battle, and Vorthan intended to use its raw power to break through the defense. Day One's eyes narrowed. Striker Lead, execute boarding protocol. 3 human ships converged on the flagship. They weathered its tremendous firepower, shields flaring under the assault, and fired specialized torpedoes that punched through the Devourer's armor without exploding. Instead, they opened to release teams of soldiers in powered armor. Human Marines stormed the Keth flagship. The fighting inside was brutal and swift. Keth warriors were larger and stronger, but human soldiers moved with terrifying precision. They used the ship's own architecture against its defenders, setting traps and ambushes, coordinating through neural links that allowed them to fight as one organism. Within an hour, the battle was over. 23 Keth warships were destroyed. 15 were disabled and drifting. The rest had fled into hyperspace. The Devourer hung motionless in space, its engines dark, its weapons silent. And Commander Vorthen knelt in chains on his own bridge, surrounded by human soldiers who had accomplished what the galaxy believed impossible. Day One's voice filled the channel one final time. Commander Vorthen is captured. All Keth forces will stand down immediately. This battle is finished. In the Concord Command Center, no one spoke. The 7 species who had forgotten war stared at the human ambassador with new understanding. This small, gentle creature had just commanded a force that shattered one of the most feared militaries in the galaxy. He had done it with precision, with minimal casualties, with cold efficiency that terrified them as much as it saved them. Day One turned away from the display, and slowly the warmth returned to his eyes. The soldier faded, and the diplomat re-emerged. "I apologize for the deception," he said quietly. "Humanity keeps many secrets. But I promise you this. We only use our strength to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is the purpose we chose when we built these ships. That is the oath every soldier swore." Chancellor Marithia looked at him for a long moment. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Truly?" Day One smiled his gentle smile. "I am exactly who I always was, Chancellor. A man who believes in peace. I simply learned long ago that sometimes peace must be defended." Commander Vorthen stood in chains before the Concord Council, and humiliation burned in his eyes like dying stars. The great throne room of the central station had been converted into a tribunal chamber. Representatives of all 7 species filled the gallery, their faces showing a mixture of fear, anger, and confusion. At the center of the room, the Keth warlord, who had terrorized countless worlds, now waited to learn his fate. Chancellor Marithia spoke first. "Commander Vorthen, you stand accused of unprovoked aggression against the Valoran Concord. Your fleet attacked our territory without justification. Your actions would have resulted in the deaths of millions. How do you answer these charges?" Vorthen lifted his massive head and bared his teeth in defiance. "I answer with contempt. The strong take from the weak. That is the only law that matters. You were prey, and I was the hunter. I make no apologies." Murmurs of outrage rippled through the gallery. Ambassador Yelthin stepped forward, his silver skin flushed with anger. "The penalty for such crimes is death. The tribunal should execute this monster immediately." Many delegates voiced their agreement. After centuries of peace, the terror Vorthen had brought had awakened ancient fears. They wanted him destroyed, wanted to feel safe again. Day One had remained silent until now. He stood apart from the other ambassadors, watching the proceedings with thoughtful eyes. When he finally spoke, his soft voice somehow cut through all the noise. "I request permission to address the tribunal." Chancellor Marithia nodded. "Ambassador Kang, you saved us all. You have earned the right to speak." Day One walked slowly toward the center of the chamber, stopping a few meters from Vorthen. The Keth commander towered over him, even in chains, a predator facing prey. "Commander," Day One said calmly, "do you know why you lost?" Vorthen snarled. "Your tricks. Your dishonorable tactics. If we had fought fairly, my fleet would have crushed you." "Perhaps." Day One agreed. "But you did not lose because of tricks. You lost because you could not imagine any strength beyond physical power. You looked at the Concord and saw weakness. You looked at humanity and saw small, fragile creatures. You never considered that we might have other kinds of strength." He turned to address the entire chamber. The Dominion taught Commander Vorthen that power comes from conquest. They taught him that mercy is weakness. They taught him that the only worthy beings are those who can kill. Day One paused, letting his words settle. But the Concord believes differently. You believe that true civilization comes from cooperation, from growth, from building, instead of destroying. What is your point, human? Yelthin demanded. My point is this, Day One replied. If we execute Vorthen, we prove him right. We prove that the universe truly is just predators and prey. We become what he expected us to be. He looked back at the Keth commander. But if we offer him something else, something he has never experienced, we prove that there is another way. Stunned silence filled the chamber. You cannot be serious, Chancellor Marithia said slowly. You would show mercy to this creature after everything he has done? Not just mercy, Day One answered. I would offer him membership. The gallery erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted in protest and disbelief. Even the Keth commander looked confused, his defiance wavering into uncertainty. Day One waited for the noise to fade before continuing. The Keth Dominion is tearing itself apart. Vorthen's empire is crumbling. His people face civil war, starvation, and destruction. He met Vorthen's eyes directly. But the Concord could offer them stability. We could offer them trade, resources, and protection. In exchange, they would renounce conquest and embrace our principles. They would never accept such terms, Yelthin argued. The Keth live for war. The Keth live for survival, Day One corrected. War was simply the method they chose. If we show them a better method, some will adapt. He turned back to Vorthen. Commander, your dominion is finished. Kasith and the other warlords will carve it into pieces. Within a year, everything you built will be gone. But it does not have to end this way. Vorthen's claws flexed against his chains. You offer me charity? I would rather die. I offer you a chance to save your people, Day One replied softly. Not through conquest, but through transformation. Join the Concord. Teach your followers to build instead of destroy. Let your strength protect instead of threaten. He stepped closer, showing no fear. You are a powerful leader, Vorthen. Your people follow you without question. Use that power for something greater than bloodshed. For a long moment, no one moved. Vorthen stared at the small human with an expression no one had ever seen on his face before. It was not anger or contempt. It was something closer to wonder. Why? The commander finally asked. Why would you spare me? I would have killed millions without hesitation. I would have destroyed everything you love. Day One smiled his gentle smile. Because I saw what you could become, not just what you were. Humans learned long ago that killing enemies creates martyrs, but transforming enemies creates allies. We discovered that mercy, properly applied, is the most powerful weapon in existence. He turned to face the council. This is my recommendation to the tribunal. Spare Commander Vorthen. Offer membership to any Keth who renounce conquest. Let us prove that the Concord's way is stronger than the Dominion's way. His voice grew firm. Let us show the galaxy that harmony is not weakness. It is the greatest strength of all. Chancellor Marithia studied the human ambassador for a long time. Then she looked at Vorthen, at the confusion and something like hope fighting behind his fierce eyes. The tribunal will deliberate, she announced. But I believe Ambassador Kang speaks wisdom. 1 year later, the Concord had grown from 7 species to 12. The Keth transition was not easy. Old habits died slowly, and not all of them accepted the new way. But Vorthen himself became the strongest advocate for change. He had seen something in that tribunal chamber, something that shattered his understanding of the universe. The small human had defeated him not through strength, but through mercy. And that mercy had burned away certainties he had carried his entire life. Day one remained on the station, resuming his role as humanity's ambassador. He attended cultural festivals and diplomatic functions. He drank tea with delegates and learned new languages. His gentle smile never faded. But now, when the other species looked at him, they saw something else beneath that warmth. They saw the architect who had torn apart an empire with whispers. They saw the commander who had broken the Keth fleet. They saw the philosopher who had transformed an enemy into an ally. They saw the truth about humanity. On the anniversary of the battle, Chancellor Marithia approached Day One during a celebration feast. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "I have been meaning to ask you something." "Of course, Chancellor." The galaxy believed humans were weak, primitive newcomers barely worth attention. She paused. Was that always the plan? Did your people intend to be underestimated? Day One's smile widened slightly. "Chancellor, humans have a saying, speak softly, but carry a big stick. We prefer peace. We genuinely want harmony. But we also understand that some beings only respect strength." He looked out at the celebration where Keth and Concord members danced together. "We hide our power not from deception, but from hope. We hope we will never need to use it. But when innocents are threatened, we will always reveal who we truly are." Marithia nodded slowly. "And who is that, Ambassador? Who are humans truly?" Day One watched a young Keth child laugh while playing with Morvani children. Innocents, untouched by the wars of previous generations. "We are protectors," he said softly. "We are dreamers who learn to fight. We are gentle souls who mastered violence so that others never have to. We are humanity." His eyes reflected the light of distant stars. "And we will always choose life over death, mercy over revenge, and harmony over chaos. That is who we truly are." The celebration continued around them, a testament to what compassion and strength combined could achieve. And somewhere in the vastness of space, other species watched and wondered about the small, gentle creatures who had shattered every expectation. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.